great. Well, thank you for listening to the Junking It Up with Junk You podcast, where we talk everything and all things home service. Today, we have Annie Kilbride from Life Simplified. She is a professional organizer with almost a decade of experience in organizing, and she specializes in moving management. Thank you for coming on today, Annie.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. So could you just tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started in organizing, and kind of what you guys do?
So I was a trauma ICU nurse and then had my kids, and I was trying to go back to nursing, and we ended up moving, and it was a chaotic move. So it was beyond chaotic.
Yeah.
I had a 3-month-old, a 3-year-old, and stuff in storage in one city and stuff going into another city, and no house. We were moving into my parents' house, so it was a little chaotic. And the one time the movers moved us completely into the house, that after it had gotten all this work done and everything, they go, "I don't know how you did this. This was the most organized move ever." And I'm looking at them like, "Are you crazy? Like, this was insane."
Yeah.
But everything was organized. I don't know how I did it, but I did. And then we were just started to talk to a couple of my son's new preschool moms, and the one mom was like, "I don't let anybody in my house." I'm like, "Why not? Like, is it scary? Like, scary order?" Like, yeah. But so she ended up just saying she just was so overwhelmed with paperwork, and it was considered everyday living type of thing. But to her, it was like, "I'm ashamed. I can't have anybody in." So finally, she just let me come in, and we would have coffee, and we would just sit there and go through. She had 2 special needs children, and then a third who was completely, mainstreamed, and she just was so overwhelmed with all the paperwork, and we got that situated. But it was kind of finding out, like, her background, why this was happening. She's like, "Well, my third was born, and parents dumped everything on the front yard and called Green Drop and said, 'Here.'" Well, that's not organizing. So I taught her how to organize, and especially with kids that they were flicking toilet paper and things, and so we had to hide toilet paper, and we had to come up with unique techniques for them to be able to contain all the toilet paper. So we were just doing different things that worked for her and for her family. And then I just didn't think anything of it. I was like, this is just keeping me busy, I'm not losing my mind. And, it kept me away from getting a job at that point. She kept recommending me to people. I'm like, "What are you recommending me to?" And she's like, "You're an organizer." I'm like, "I am what?" And so then I did that for about a year, and then joined National Association of Professional Organizers and got a mentor. And then almost, 9.5 years now. Yeah, the rest is history. But it's been fun. We kind of just started organizing. Like, I just started help organizing, and then we added somebody, and then we added, just the virtual assistant and book. But it just kept evolving. And then we realized people kept asking us to help them with the move. Like, we're decluttering. Once we got them all completely decluttered, they go, "Surprise, we're moving." And we're like, "What?" So we ended up able to help them move, and it just started to do that. And then I was like, we really need to start focusing, besides just organizing, really focus and learn. And so we trained, watching the YouTube videos of different techniques and what to move and how to move, and talk to different movers, and figured out, spoke with you guys how to do the right thing and how to pack. And then this year we joined the National Association of, Movers, and NASM, and Senior Move Management. And it's been great because it's teaching us the different techniques of how to actually manage a full move. And it's been great because it's evolving, and it's, people think, you can just, they get so overwhelmed and they don't know where to turn. And so it's great to be able to help them and make it stress-free.
Right. Yeah. So you didn't initially plan on doing the moving. It just kind of happened that's where a lot of the clients were surrounding that big life event. Mm-hmm. And that's where it kind of came in.
A lot of it happened was, some people were, "I'm getting a divorce and now I'm moving," or, "Can you pack the excess stuff up and get it out of here?" So it started out to be like that, or merging, multi-families, like, "Hey, my parents are moving in with me," or, "Now what do I do with, my boyfriend and his family are moving in. How do I pack, and how do we organize all this multiple stuff coming in?" And sometimes it's funny because you see people who go, "I moved from a, 1-bedroom efficiency in New York, and now this place is like exploding with stuff. Where did it all come from?" But it was from storage and things like that. So it's not just teaching them how to move and pack up and move, like, it's merging two families together. If they're moving together, then it's like, what do you do with all this stuff? And then you kind of go through it. So ideally, it would be nice to go through all of it before it moves, but that doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, that's one of the biggest fears, actually, I think listed is moving. So what do you do initially, when someone calls you in? What's the first step in the process of getting them organized and getting them ready to move for you and your team?
So one thing is I kind of find out, is this a necessity move? Like, are you on a crunch time? Is it for business? Like, is it for jobs or family? Is it for something like, is there a deadline? Like, oh my gosh, I need to be in the house, find a house before the end of the school year? Or is it, I'm downsizing and my mom's in the hospital and I need to get our house sold immediately? And so really just to find out, one is the timeline. When do you have a new place yet? Or are you just kind of thinking this through right now and not sure? Or do we have a loved one who needs to be moved out quickly? What's the process? So we really try and figure out what's the background of it. Is it the house is too small? We found a house, we have 3 months. Or I'm actually thinking of moving, but I'm working on a plan in 3 years. So I need to start downsizing now. And then can you hook me up with a realtor? And then it's the steps. So really its first question is to find out, what the timeline is, and then find out if there are working with realtors, what's their biggest stressor? Like, what's really making them so stressed? Like, is it that their house is so full and they have to downsize? Is it that, how am I going to move all this stuff when I have a baby and I'm working full time? How am I going to do this, but also keep my house, looking somewhat normal and functional? Or how am I going to do this? Stage my house and move all this, and I'm moving across the country. And so it's really just finding out the background of what's going on and what's their biggest stressor. And then what we do is we create a calendar. And so we really work with them and say, okay, this is the move date, or we don't have a move date. We're thinking 3 years down the road. Okay, so these first 3 months, we're going to work on downsizing. Then in the next 3 months, we're going to start talking about, let's find a realtor. And then let's figure out what the next, so we kind of just break it down. Sometimes we get calls 5 days before a move. And so in that case, we're just like, okay, let's go with it. So sometimes you don't have a chance to declutter before a move. So literally we're just packing.
Going crazy.
Packing as much, and it's just pack and just say pack and sort, and we mark which rooms they are in. And some of the things we know are definitely staying. Other things we're like, we need to sort through on the other side.
Sure.
Sometimes unfortunately, it's out of our hands. They'll move to another state, and then we connect them with another organizer who's going to unpack.
Yeah.
And then we're profusely apologetic because it was a short, 5-day call. Because a lot of times people feel like they can do it on their own, and then they get stuck with work, or they don't know,
They see the deadline coming up and like, well, now I need help.
Exactly. And we've had a couple instances where someone actually said to me, I have 5 days to get out of my house. I didn't think, she was basically she just didn't want to believe it, that they were getting a divorce. And the divorce papers were signed. She called me immediately out of the attorney's office and said, I have 5 days to get out of my house.
Wow.
And there's a lot. And help me. So, we're there to help them, and we can do a whole move. We can do parts of it, like just do the kitchen, do the attic or the basement, or do the garage. Mm-hmm. It all really just depends on what people want, and then we kind of just work with them and figure out what they need. Sometimes we've had clients who've called me and said, look, my father's in the hospital. He's going into assisted living, help us. We're all out of state. So I then kind of am the coordinator of making sure we have a storage unit, we have a mover, we have, I speak with the person who's taking over in the nursing home. So I speak with that person, the director there of move-in services, and we talk with them and make sure everything's working out with them. So then I'm the coordinator to manage all those pieces, and then I'm supposed to be I then facilitate all the siblings and making sure everybody's on the same page. And so originally it was, we have all this, he's a historian, what do we do with all this stuff? So I had brought in auctioneers and appraisal people to appraise all these things. But then they kind of were like, reality hit that they were like, oh my gosh, now he's going, all this
Yeah.
stuff's going. So we just packed everything up and kept the necessities he would need for the nursing home. And the last day of the move, he passed away. And it was like, okay, so certain things that were always marked nursing home, we went around and just crossed that off and just said storage. And then once they were able to, overcome some of the grief, we all met back, 4 siblings out of state, and met with them, and we went through the storage locker, which was very difficult for them. But then we were trying to deal with the weather inclements, and you're pulling things out because it was only an exterior unit. So, because it was originally, you were supposed to just pull right in and out. So it was just a difficult move for them, but it's always a curveball sometimes.
Yeah. When you get those like emergency ones where they say, I have to get out in 5 days, right? And there's so much that has to go on. There's also a level of some things can't happen in that timeline. Do you find yourself having to, at least we've found in our experience of having to tell them, maybe some of the, hey, I know you want to donate this stuff, or I know you want to get this to your daughter, but if we're going to do that, it's either going to cost a lot more money because maybe you have to store it, or we have to face reality of this might not be able to come. We got to get this out. Do you find yourself, especially in those situations, having to kind of bring that up, kind of say, hey, be the professional and say, I'm sorry, I wish I could do this for you, but with the timeline we have, we can only do X, as opposed to, if you had called me 3 months ago.
Exactly. We've had to say that several times. I mean, like, I'm sorry, like, we can't do this. Like, you can take, certain things and have her daughter's, father-in-law pick it up, but then he'll have to ship it. Like, we don't have that ability to, let's call and get it all coordinated. Like, I can arrange it after the move, but it can't be in here. We need to get it out.
Yeah.
There are times where it's just like everything just goes and then we have to kind of figure it out. But sometimes it's like reality is we don't have the choice. You don't have the choice of picking things. Sometimes, like, we had a client who called us from, moved to Montana during the pandemic and was like, she's moved. The house was there and she thought she was going to move back. She didn't. And she's like, I need some things for my son who's going to college, but everything else is, going. And I was like, okay. So we arranged for, donation pickup and everything and furniture and all this stuff. And then she said she was going to still take majority of the furniture to Montana, like have it moved with the movers. And I was like, okay. So we coordinated with the movers that all this furniture was going and everything was done. We get there. And first, she then tells me that she's only there for 3 days instead of 5 days. So to make the decisions, I was like, whoa, this is going to be a little trickier. And then not to mention I was dealing with, medical crisis with my son. So the first day I was very, not even there. My son had Lyme's disease, so he was just getting discharged from the hospital. So it was one of those, like, you have to rely on your team and hope to, cross your fingers that everybody's going to do their job. But it was interesting because we literally were trying to help the realtor, but in the same time we were like, look, you don't have a choice of which, we're just calling whoever estate sale can take all this furniture because, most donation places weren't taking furniture at the time.
And if they are, they may be next month, but not today. Yeah.
Right. So it was like, we can trash it or we can, call this estate company and you're going to make some money, but the rest of it's not. But, it's one of those hard decisions. Like, we only have 3 days to work on this. Like, this is it. So, and it's hard. And sometimes, people aren't happy with you. And you just kind of have to just grin and smile and make it happy. But, it's hard because a lot of people don't realize that, moves take a long time to process. And mentally, physically, it's a lot. Sure. And so you might think I can handle this, but then it gets so overwhelming because someone else can come in and pack it where you sit there and you want to reminisce over different things. Yes. Oh, I remember this baby blanket, or I remember this picture, where we don't have that attachment, so we can move faster.
Right.
So in an ideal circumstance, let's say you have, that 3 months, like they're selling their house, they already bought one, it's a couple months down the line, and they know they're going to need help right away, and they give you a call. So you basically have a clean slate, and everything is positive to work with. What is your typical plan in that situation? Like in your ideal world, how do you tackle a big 4-bedroom house in terms of getting it ready? And assuming it's not like craziness, it's just like a normal house.
So what we do is we figure out, is there a place for one to stage the boxes? So is there a room, is it going to go to storage? So if it is going to storage, who's taking it? Like, do we need to arrange for that? Is it going to be just putting it in a garage? Because we're staging the house, what are we doing? Like, is the house already up for sale? Are we getting it ready for pictures? Different things like that. So for one, we kind of walk through the house and say, okay, are we taking everything? And most of the time they say they don't want certain things. And then they're like, okay. So what I tell people is we red tag everything that is, for one, staying in the house. So that meaning, the movers aren't going to take. You guys probably know that. So everything doesn't get what stays. So then, like if it's bought with the house, sometimes, the furniture and different things are staying. Then what we do is then we take another sticky note and if it's per kids, if you want certain things to go to certain kids, if we'll label, we pick a color. What's your kid's favorite color? And we tag each one. If it's donate, we pick a color. So we'll say it's blues, all going to donate. And we have donate stickers that we just tag, donate, anything, pictures, knickknacks, you name it, anything that's out visually, we can tag with them. We do a big walkthrough with the client and say, okay, and then everything else we know, okay, we don't need to pack all this up. And then we come up with a plan with them saying, okay, so when is the house going on the market? So then we do a pre-pack. So then we pack everything up, like family pictures, anything that won't make the house look presentable for a moving. We try less is best. So we try and pre-pack everything what we can. And then depending where those boxes go, we go there. And then we have come in, and then if we need to, certain houses do need some staging. And sometimes we actually just started doing this past year, adding staging to it, because clients were spending a lot of money on staging when they didn't need to, and when we can just do it. Because then, so instead of packing certain decor, we'll leave certain decor out. We'll bring our own decor, and then we just stage the house, have the pictures taken, and then so it's ready to go to be listed. And then while the house is still being listed, a lot of times it doesn't last very long to be on the market. Nowadays, right? But sometimes if it is taking a little bit longer, we still have the opportunity to go through all the filing. Lots of people have tons of papers, the pictures, the things that are in closets, storage attics, things like that. We'll start kind of going through those spaces and then making it still presentable, but we are still able to tackle a lot of that paperwork. And then we just kind of go through all that. And then once we know the house is sold, we can then just go from room to room. So we'll tackle any space that's not usable right away, and we get that packed up. And then usually we wait till the last minute for the kitchen, or we start doing some boxes of kitchen, and then we basically just finish everything. So then by the week of, we kind of go through with the client and say, okay, we have 1 week left. This is what needs to be done. But we give them major moving checklists. So it breaks it down by month, by day, by week, and it basically tells them, this is when you need to turn off the electricity and transfer this. Now, sometimes clients are like, I don't want to do any of this. I want you to do it. So we just do everything. So we, submit their change in mail orders, and we do everything for them, and they don't want to have to deal with it. So then we just coordinate everything, and then we'll have everything ready for the new place. We have everything, and we have a checklist that basically we write down. So box 1 has this, box 2, and so if they're missing something or something got packed by mistake, that they all of a sudden were like, oh, wait a minute,
that should be here right now.
Yeah, we need this, or by chance, the modem, you told me to pack up. Now all of a sudden you don't want the modem packed up. Yeah. We can go right to that box and pull it out.
That's awesome.
And every room is color coded and marked and labeled, so it's easy to unpack at the new.
Yeah, well, and that's huge, because for people, if they haven't moved, or if they have moved, a lot of the time waste on the actual date of moving things around is the decisions. So what you're doing is you're taking those decisions out long before, so the focus can be just doing the action. And it sounds so simple, but it's a lot of people don't do it. They wait and they go, well, I think I want that in the. You're saying no, we're going to do that long before, when we're not stressed out, we don't have to make a quick decision, and we don't have people on the clock that have to be moving. They're taking the time, with you to make sure they make those decisions long before they got to do that.
And sometimes like they have to do some repairs. So knowing like we have the connections, we can give them, connect them with the right people to say, okay, here, we have you guys to clear out the junk. And then also we just sit there and we coordinate that day. So they can sign the papers if they need to be signing the papers, if they need to do something else, or if they have to go to work. I'm there coordinating with the movers, and then back and forth, making sure everything's there and everything's where things need to go, and do the walkthrough if they need to be. And sometimes if it has to go to storage, we're going to storage with them and making sure everything goes where it needs to go accordingly. So, but also sometimes it's like a downsize move, so we'll go over and see the new place ahead of time if possible, or get pictures or floor plans so we can measure and say, okay, these pieces of furniture are not going to fit, or these pieces may fit. And so it works great for us that if we need to bring the interior designer in that they hired, we can show them being like, okay, this is what the floor plan is, this is what. And sometimes we can go in and be like, okay, you have no storage whatsoever in this house. We need to add some. So we need to, if you want closet systems, we need to get that installed right away. Like, so we can ahead. So day of moving, like they know, okay, maybe we won't move day one once we get the house. Maybe we can have the contractors and things like that go in. So we can kind of coordinate all that ahead of time too.
I know it's probably case by case, but with your average client that you're prepping for a move, how much do they use your service after they get to the new location? Like, is that a very typical thing where it's not just move preparation, it's also like move
New house setup, post move. Yeah.
So a lot of times people do that a lot because they don't want to do it, or so they'll say come in and set up the baby's room or the kitchen and the master bath, like get it set up so they can function. And then sometimes they'll want to do some of it and then they'll call us back to finish it. Other times it's just unpack the whole house, which is, we can do that too. Sometimes people try and say they want to do it at first, and then they call us and they're like, I'm overwhelmed.
And it's the movie on the start. They do it and then they get to the last minute and they say never mind.
But a lot of times, majority of clients will have us come back to the new place because we've already known what the boxes are. We've taken pictures of certain cabinets that they know that they want everything just the way it is as it is. So we just look at our picture, unpack the box, and just go boom, 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 and it's easy for us and it's less thinking for them.
Yeah, which is such a big deal. I mean, what do you think's the kind of the biggest problems that you see consistently? Because for most people's moves, it's just one time, right? Like, or maybe they do it a few times in their life, but you see it every single day. What are like kind of the main things that happen a lot that people can, avoid, whether it's the real estate process, maybe it's double close, or what are kind of the issues that you see a lot just in moving in general that people can try to avoid?
Well, one of the things is, I think the biggest thing is people try and do everything like you said, the closing double close, and it's very overwhelming for them, which is fine as long as like I'm there and they have a coordinator.
Sure.
But it's overwhelming. But a lot of people prefer, which I've seen recently, is being able to say, okay, I'm getting my place now, and then they have a month. And it is a big difference because they don't feel rushed, so we can get the movers in there. Sure. We move everything. The movers are in there. Everything's getting moved, and then we're easy to just take our time to unpack. And sometimes there is construction that needs to be done, or
there's a real estate problem, because that can happen on those double closed. Yeah,
definitely. So it's nice to have that block where we can move everything, and then there's still things like left over, say like the refrigerator and maybe the shed you didn't want to deal with at that time. So there are little things like, or it's nice to have, okay, I have time and I don't want to hire a cleaner, I would rather clean myself, so then they can come back and clean the place and do that. Sometimes if you do a double close, you're assuming the people are cleaning the house for you, and it's not. So then you have movers coming in and you're in tears because now you're rushing to try and clean a house, and it doesn't.
You have till noon.
You have till noon till the movers come. So then what happens is I drop everything and we call a neighbor, and the neighbor stays and monitors the movers, and I go over, and between the husband, wife, and I, and we're sitting there scrubbing everything because some of the houses need to be cleaned better than. So having that extra, even a day or two, is, amazing.
Sure.
The other thing I see lately, which is mind blowing to me, is when you arrange the stagers, like no matter what, if it's you staging the place, if I stage the house, or having stagers come in, and then you wait a week, which is fine if you're a two working couple, but you have 5 kids running around, and now you are constantly trying to maintain it. It's too much stress.
Sure.
So coordinate where you have the stage. Like a lot of times we try and say, let us stage in the morning and then have the pictures that afternoon. Get it done with. So then, yes, the house may be a little in disarray when, but it's easy. You can, for showings, all you have to do is throw everything in a laundry basket and put it in your car.
Yep.
You're not having to worry about, oh my gosh, everything is, it's less stress, because as long as the house is staged, pictures are done. Like maybe the blanket's not exactly the way you want it, but nobody's really going to notice that doing a walkthrough, but at least for the pictures, it's going to look nice.
Right. Yeah.
But I've seen so many times people so stressed about that. And then, the other thing is people are very overwhelmed with the stuff. Like, what do I do with the stuff? And a lot of it's the family stuff. Like, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. The timing, that's such a big difference. And the increase in cost when you have that timing can be so extreme. A lot of moving companies have storage but that costs money. So you could get to your second closing and someone forgot to sign some paper, and now you're stuck. Now you don't have a house, and your stuff's in a moving truck. Those things happen where you don't have to worry about that if you have, a full month to do that, right? Yeah. You can, and you can say, hey, maybe we just have the movers do the big stuff as opposed to doing everything where, when you're under the gun like that, you really, you have to do it. It's got to happen today or else,
And then I've had, I've had clients, everyone wants to try and save some money, but to the point where it's like they moved to Vermont, but they did the move themselves, and they rented these pods that they could do at containers, and basically they loaded the whole containers themselves, and then, which would have been fine because we packed up and we moved it into the pod, and then the family helped, but he was moving big boxes and all this stuff, taking carloads up every weekend, and it got too much. He got himself sick, and then he was trying to do the house repairs. So you have to pick and choose. Are you doing the house repairs, or are you going to move some of it? But you have to think about how much travel time, and is it worth losing out on family time and family, memories and things like that. It's just not worth that.
Yeah. Do you find a portion of your business is that education piece or the realization to the customer? Because I know a lot of people want to do the double close because in their head, oh, well, we'll get everything done one day and it's less time we have to deal with this stuff. Do you find yourself having to educate them all right, well, let's think about this more realistically, this, X, Y, and Z thing?
Definitely. It's always, I feel like every day is educating someone. They feel like you can call a mover, 5 days before a move. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. Calling for a storage locker and in a new town that you don't know. You have to figure, and sometimes it's, I'm moving across country, but I need someone to unpack me. Well, you can't tell me a day before the move that you have nobody to help you. Sure. So it's a constant scramble, but it's a lot of those things that you have to account for different things. And I'm going to just have a handyman or a painter available. It doesn't, you have to have the things planned, and it's hard for people who procrastinate, and that's okay. But that's why you just pass it on to someone like myself or someone else who can do it, because it's easier for us to be able to manage it, and you don't have to make those decisions. Definitely. But I think the biggest thing is people who, nobody wants to sit here and say, oh, my mother's going to pass away or anything, or in just general, anybody's health. But I tell people, if you can do a will, you want to also just state that, okay, if there are certain pieces you want to go to somebody, write it down now. Even if it's on a piece of paper, it doesn't have to be through a lawyer or anything, because 9 out of 10 times I go into homes and they go, I don't know what my parents want me to do with this stuff. And a lot of it, people end up donating to all different places. But then there's certain things they're like, well, would you want me to keep this or not? And You know, and it's hard because they don't want the clutter, and then they're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And or if you have siblings, you're fighting over different things. So it's even just having that verbal agreement and writing it down quickly on a piece of paper or notes on your phone, that somebody knows that what certain things you want to go to. And it's I tell people who are 20, 22, just if there are certain things that you expect, you want, if any per se anything unfortunately happens, it can go to somebody else. Because I deal with a lot of sibling fighting and the other clients who are just stuck with clutter that they don't want to deal with because, oh, well, this is the genealogy Bible. Well, I don't want that. And then it's like, well, what do I do with it? You know, so they don't know what to do with it. So it's having that conversation, just even in passing, just saying, hey, you know, this is the family Bible and I would like this passed along. You know, just something in just 2 sentences. That way somebody knows what's going on.
Well, it just kind of goes back to like the moving in general of, you know, when you make those decisions before the heat of the, you know, the actual stress of moving and all the process, it's a lot easier than, okay, well now, you know, which is, it's a horrible experience. Okay, mom passed away and we got to deal with the funeral and we got, like, there's a million things going on, you know, almost kind of not the last thing, but one of the last things is, well, what do I do with the cabinet? It's, you know what I mean? All the stuff you have to handle, if that's already solved before, you know, that's a big deal. Just like where's the moving stuff go? It's like, well, I don't know, you know, and when it's the day of and you're like, I got to go sign documents and I'm driving back and, I got to pick my kids up. Like, you know, there's 50 different things. You also have to go, where does that go? I don't know. Are you going to keep that? Maybe, you know, as opposed to we already solved that 2 weeks ago.
And then, I mean, the one thing we see a lot too is, you know, clients are like, they don't know what to do. So, you know, you got all this information. Someone passed away. What do you do with it? So, you know, they tell you, if they don't have a will, you have to reach out to, like, you know, an attorney and da-da-da-da-da. So they give you that information. But then clients are like, okay, what do I do with the house? How do I manage everything in this house? I don't want any of this, or I do, but I work, I have a family, or I just had surgery. Like, what do I do? And so that's why it's educating people to say there are people out there that will deal with this. Like, that's one of the things we deal with every day is we can come in, we can give you a list, and just even on our website, we have a blog on it too, is this is what we can do for you. Like, someone passes away, these are the steps you need to do. And it's a quick checklist we have on our website that just shows you. And so you're not overwhelmed, because so many people are so overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, what do I do with all these things? How do I reach out to this? What do I do with this? And so it's that constant, like, figuring out what to do. And so having that just resource, and that's one of the things we are always for. Just even having checklists and things like that, or just, I tell people, just give me a call and we can walk through the process, because it's overwhelming. You don't know what to do with certain things.
Sometimes you just need that, you know, clarification from the professional to say, okay, we have a plan for this. This is going to work out, you know, kind of get the ball rolling without having to get too deep into it.
And a lot of times people think, you know, everything's worth.
You took the words that I was just going to say. Everyone thinks, oh, we'll just resell it, right? And you're like, no, probably not, unfortunately.
And the reality is there are certain things that will sell right away and other things do not sell. Like, you would think like a Dorney Burke pocketbook would sell. No, nobody wants, like, so you have to think about, like, certain things may sell, certain things may not sell. Sure. And so the reality is saying, I want to have an estate sale. Mm-hmm. Okay, but you have to remember there's a percentage. And so if you want 100%, it's not going to work. Yeah. And so everyone thinks that I can sell things, or they're going to be able to sell things. You're not going to want to sell things. You're overwhelmed. And then it's having that, you have to realize that you're going to give a proportion to it. But then I always tell people there are so many agencies out there, like the community warehouse. Yeah. There's just so many places that are in need of things. Let's, you know, outsource them to the charities that need it, because who needs, you know, you're not going to try and sell old tools. Let's give them to Habitat for Humanity. Let's recycle things and let people enjoy another life in these items, where instead of collecting dust in your attic.
Well, and then the work involved, even if you can sell those pieces, is it's not as simple as just. I mean, even donating is not as simple as just dropping it off. That's not how it works. So, I mean, in the process of selling is, like any sort of sale of anything, you gotta. There's work involved. There's connecting with them, and then there's things that don't go through. Oh, they're gonna pick up my couch, and they show up, and the truck's not big enough, or they didn't like it, so then they leave. So, it's not, even if things can sell, which a lot of times most people overestimate what they can sell, and then how much they can get. Even if they are right about that, or that they can sell, they definitely don't estimate correctly the amount of work and the amount of just things you need to deal with to actually get those things sold and out of your life. And when you're talking about a 5-bedroom house with, on top of, and this is all happening while you're living your life too. Yeah. It's not like your full-time job is now to sell, We
have, because I started to try and sell things left and right for clients, and it got so overwhelming. It's like you can't do it. Yeah. So we have a stay-at-home mom who wanted, so she sells stuff, but it's not just like you said, selling. She cleans it up. So if it's silver, she is polishing it and making sure then she does all the research on how much it sells, and then she posts it, and then it's the constant battle. But people, like you said, people come up and this and that, and even if you're trying to sell something through eBay so, I mean, there's great ways of selling certain things through auctions and, appraisals, but everything is not just easy peasy anymore. You have to clean everything. You have to make sure it doesn't, there's no damage to it, and you have to take measurements and see if the agency will take it. There's just so.
And a lot of times the way our brains are wired, I think we just kind of see like money going out as opposed to money coming in. But I obviously this is for what we do, but I think the opportunity cost people don't always take into account of. It may just be better sometimes for a lot of it to pay just to have it out so you can focus on getting the house sold, you know what I mean? Or moving over, as opposed to trying to sell every individual piece and the amount of time that it takes to even just deal with the estate, or the estate picks it up and then they only sold 50%. So they're not keeping it for you for free. Now they're going to give it back. So you end up with it, So a lot of times it can be easier to, at least for a portion of it, to, either whether it's a service like us or just another way of, like you said, donating, just kind of just getting it out and moving on and focusing on,
we tell people, like, if you're downsizing, or your parents moving out of the home, take what you want and get out of the house. Like, we'll pack up, take what you want, and leave the rest there, and let us deal with if it's, appraisable, or if it's worth anything. And then, if it can be sold, or if we're doing an estate sale. But it's easier for you to pack up and get out of the home than to try and deal with all of it. Because then we can say, you know what? Most of this isn't going to sell. What's left? Sure. So then let's just, donate it, or call you guys, or whatever we need to do. Yeah. But it's easier if you're downsizing to step away from it all, because it is overwhelming, being like, oh, I have to figure all this out. It's easier just to pack up what you want and then move. And then when you come back in, you'll be like, oh, actually, I don't need this, or I don't need this now, because you're in the new space, and you're not as stressed because you've already adjusted into your new place.
Sure. How do you handle situations with like sentimental items, whether it be a downsize or someone's passed away, and whether they want to keep it or move to a new location, they don't have the space for it, so they have to get rid of it. How do you have that conversation and bring it up of, without being blunt, like, this is worth nothing and you don't have the space for it? It's like,
it's hard to donate.
Exactly.
We really talk to people more like, we find out, like, what is, do you really like this item? Because I've had clients who had these creepy clowns. I mean, they were so creepy. They had them hidden in a closet, and they were like these Marquette things. But they were Marquette things on these strings, and it was. I opened up the closet, and I'm like, whoa, this is yes. And I said, is there a reason why these aren't being displayed? And she goes, well, they were loved ones, and I thought I should keep them, but they're scary as anything. I'm like, okay, then we're gonna let them go and pass them away. But there are other things that people say, like, oh, this meant a lot to my mom. And I said, okay, let's do this. Let's take pictures of the things that are sentimental that you don't want, or you don't want to have around. So then we take pictures of it and make a photo book for them. Other things we say, okay, if there's a lot of T-shirts, let's make a memory blanket out of it. Or I've done a lot of times with loved ones who have passed away. So if we're working with widows, or grandparent, anybody who's passed away, we take, even if it's ties, T-shirts, anything, and we have a couple of resources who make, bears or teddy bears or pillows.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we make, even like they don't have to be passed away, but it could be like my kids are growing up, but here's all their Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. So we can make different things like that. Other times we say, let's create a shadow box of certain things and let other things go. Or if they feel like it's so sentimental that they don't want to personally throw out, I'm like, hand it to me. I'll take it, and then I take it with me, and then I do what I need to do with it. Other times it's, is there someone else in the family that would be interested in it? So then we reach out to other people and be like, okay, would you be willing to get this, but you have only a deadline to get this. You have to set a deadline, otherwise they don't get it.
They'll get it, I think, next week.
But then other times it's finding out like, oh, my neighbor said they really like this, or my neighbor really collects this. Okay, well, if our neighbor collects this, then let them enjoy it. Yeah. So sometimes it's just saying, okay, you know what? The local art studio is like high school is looking for these things. Let's pass this along. Sure. Your dad had a great art studio, but all these supplies aren't going to be able to be resold, but let's give it to the art school. Or like Legos, the library's doing Lego so thinking outside of the box of where they could be if they don't want them. But sometimes it is hard because they feel they're attached to it, but they don't want anything to do with it. So I say, okay, you want the memory, which is great. Let's talk to me about this. Explain this memory to me. And there's always a story. And I listened to the story about it. And I said, okay, that's awesome. I said, your dad did this and he always wore this hat. Okay, do you want this hat? Well, I have no room for it. Okay, would you rather have it in a memory box and put it in an attic? Or would you rather have it displayed and maybe take a piece of art off your wall? Or would you rather just take a picture? And so 9 out of 10 times they would want just a picture of it. Yeah. And then we frame it, and then they can hang it on the wall. So it's really just talking through what they want. And then sometimes they can't make that decision. So what we end up doing is we just wrap it up and put it in a bin and call it memories to go through. So when they are ready, they can go through those memories.
I love the picture book idea and the making of the blankets and whatnot. It's an awesome way to consolidate, but not just make it feel like it's being thrown away. I think that's such a cool idea.
We've done it a couple times where we've connected them. Like I've coordinated it where I've taken the clothes and given it to the girl who's made the teddy bears for the 3 kids that lost their dad. And it was great because they got these presents for Christmas and it was dad's T-shirts. Yeah. And so they had that. So that's a nice memory for everybody. And it's not going to, just anywhere. So it's nice. And I kind of talk through clients too. Is there just one piece of clothing we want to keep instead of the whole wardrobe? So that type of thing.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate the time. If someone is listening to this and they're super stressed because they're moving in a week, how can they find you? What's the best way for them to contact you and Life Simplified?
The best way is we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, website. Basically, you can reach me by calling me at 215-908. Yeah, you can attach it. Call me and check on my website. My website has all the connections, so you'll link that into that. Yeah, but basically, my website has everything and it has all the checklists, and they can just...
And then one last question. What area do you service if someone's looking?
We serve everywhere, pretty much. We'll go... we've traveled for clients who've moved to Florida, so we'll travel for you. Hey, why not? I'll go to Key West. I'll go to Key West for, Granted, we went and unpacked, but we didn't get to see much. But it was at least in a nice, warm place. So, but we'll go anywhere. We go through
here or warm.
But we'll go anywhere. Okay. But we'll go. It's Delaware County, Montgomery County, Chester County. Pottstown. We go all around.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.